Hey, as a law firm owner, it's very possible you're going to have a setback before you move forward. The question is, what do you do about it? Macroeconomics that hurt your lead sources so you didn't get as many new clients, or a key attorney walk out of your office with an armful of clients and maybe some employees along the way. Maybe you just had a massive mutiny by your staff for one reason or another and they left. Maybe there was some massive upheaval in the law changes that just changed the way things were happening in your office and it started making your firm crawl to a stop. A law firm will go through a season where they go through some difficulty rebuilding, maybe a retraction. The question is, what do you do about it? You can shrink back and do what we call keep it small and keep it all. Maybe you crossed over the 1.2, you're into the 1.5, $1.8 million level, and it feels like you're pushing the big rock up the hill. By the way, we call that section of the business building the hell section. And you have a decision to make. Do I go forward and keep building towards that $3 million level? Or do I retract back under the $1.2 million level and keep it small and keep it all? 4 people are called our Entrepreneurial Attorney of the Year, meaning they were voted the 4 finalists to compete in the Entrepreneurial Attorney of the Year that just happened in Charlotte at our Partners Club event. In order to get there, they had to be vulnerable with where they were in 2024. And so in each case, they had a period of growth, and then they had a period of retraction, and then a period of growth again. So if we look at attorney James Hausen and his wife, Denise, in the beginning of 2025, he had a key attorney leave him. That key attorney was somebody that he trusted with a high level of responsibility in the firm. He was doing a lot of the work that James was doing. And when that attorney left, because they had entrusted so much with that one person, James got thrown back into the operation so fast and everything else came to a grinding halt while Denise tried to hold it all together. And it's a super challenging time. And they really had the discussion, should we just shrink back and go back to keep it small, keep it all level, or should we drive through? And they decided to rally the team, figure out how to redo the systems, remove the one key man risk that they had, spread out the job duties, hire another attorney, and grow from there. And grow they did. It's so valuable to understand that the moment of retraction for James was a moment of opportunity for him to look at that situation and said, I wonder if there's a better way to do this. And in this particular instance, there was. As the CEO, you have to be thinking not what happens to you, but what are you going to do about what happens to you? And in James's case, he said, no, this is an opportunity for us to redo the way we're doing things. And because he did, he grew. Now, if we look at Katonga Wright in 2023, she was voted the EAY winner. And because of that, she was on a high. And in 2024, she saw her business really level out. And the reason why it was leveling out was because she was leveling up. So she took the growth from 2023 and she doubled down on building the systems and reinventing the structures from a tech stack, and jumped head first into this concept of AI and using AI software to be able to build the firm on a stronger foundation. So rather than cutting team members, they're keeping team members, but just driving more revenue per team member. So in 2023, she was running and gunning and the team was going, and she realized they needed to slow down and just get things right if they were going to get to the next level. Though she had this massive win in 2023, she leveled out in 2024 and took the time in 2024 to build a better tech stack foundation and systematic foundations so that they could soar in 2025. Because what got them to where they were was not the same skills and systems that were going to be required to get them to where they want it to be. And so Katonga's lesson, the lesson I want you to take out of this as a CEO, is sometimes you have to go slower in order to go faster. And that's exactly what Katonga did. If you want to grow your firm, one of the fastest ways is for you to get a non-attorney salesperson. If you've got questions about that, if you're not sure, if it's something you think you might want to do, by all means, visit us at thestaffingroom.com. So these firms all have something in common. They were EAY finalists before, and then they entered a period of unrest and came out the other side and were voted EAY finalists again. So Nicole Reeves LaValle, she struggled with 18 team members leaving her firm. Now, most of those 18 team members were in the intake team. They were in the entry-level position teams. She figured out it's an important role. In order to keep the machine going, she's got to convert leads over to appointments. She gets that. But this particular role kept driving her crazy, how many people she kept going through to find the right ones. And finally, she turned from within. She turned to her husband and said, "Hey, doesn't your daughter do this for a living? What if we hire an expert and let them come in and figure this out, rather than you and I trying to figure out something we're not really good at?" And that's what they did. They brought in an expert in her daughter who had an experience in building teams like this and actually had access to teams like this. And they recruited her away from her company, paid her more money, gave her a better upside, gave her more freedom, no more nights and weekends, all the beautiful things that she wanted to have with working with a law firm. Got to work with family, sometimes good, sometimes bad. I get it. And then they empowered her to go find people that she knew would be on the right team. And she did. She goes, "I'm not going to hire anybody that I don't know can do the job." And she went and hired people that could do the job. And because of that, their intake process soared. And because their intake process soared, their new clients soared. And because their new clients soared, their billables soared. Because their billables soared, their revenue soared. Because the revenue soared, their income soared, right? And so everything went up. And so the lesson I want you to take from Nicole Reeves LaValle is that oftentimes, you're not going to be really good at everything. You're an attorney. You were trained in law. You weren't trained in small business. And most of you weren't trained in intake and sales. Go find an expert and have them go find you good quality team members. That's what they did with Simone, their daughter, that they brought in and said, "Let you go do what you're really good at." Of course, she proved herself. And now she's running the entire sales department for them. That firm is going to continue to grow year after year because they nailed their sales process by bringing in a team expert. Finally, last but not least, Humberto Rivera. Humberto would tell you he's been at this since 2000, I think it was 11. And so we're in the 14, 15, 16 year mark here where he's been at this. And he was one day away from making the final decision to leave his practice and go work for somebody else. He'd never done it before, but he had just banged his head against the wall so much, doing maybe $120,000, $130,000 in gross revenues, and couldn't break through. And he decided to take our call. And look, we're not taking credit for his soaring. He had to do it, right? So he came in, took our call, came to an event, got one piece of advice that changed his life. I basically told him, you need to change your prices, raise your prices. You need to change the way you're getting paid so that we're not chasing so much money. He did those two things. And from that point forward, his business soared. That created more profit. That profit allowed him to go invest more money in replacing himself and more money in advertising. And now, instead of filing 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 cases a month, he's filing 30 and 40 and 50 and 60 cases a month. And all that's happened because he made one decision to get the information that was going to give him a chance and then implement that information. In this particular case, raise his fees and make sure he was getting paid correctly. And when he did that, that created profit. And because he's intelligent and hardworking, he figured out what the rest of the things we were saying is replace yourself. He went and hired himself a non-attorney salesperson. By the way, had to go through 3 of them before he found a good one. That's not uncommon. But now has one that's closing over 75% on a regular basis. And that all happened because of the one decision that he made. But he'll never forget that he was one day away from looking his 2 boys in the eyes and saying, "Guys, I couldn't make the business work. And so I went and took a job." And while the kids may not have understood the difference, he was going to understand the difference. Ultimately, our members voted Humberto Rivera. They voted him the EAY Entrepreneurial Attorney of the Year winner. And I think they did so because he was so humble and honest and transparent and vulnerable with the fact that he was one day away from having to go work for somebody else and drop a firm that now has got real enterprise value and is moving towards this idea of, could I sell this someday? Look, if you're the CEO of your firm and you want more help with this, one of the ways we help you at thestaffingroom.com is by pointing in the right direction for the right team members. One of those team members is a non-attorney salesperson. In every single example I gave you, all 4 of those EAY finalists are using a non-attorney salesperson. Some of them had to go through more than one to find the right one. That's not abnormal. But in every case, that's what they're doing. We're happy to walk alongside you, give you some free resources and some guidance, or schedule a call and have a conversation with you. But between now and then, let's go build your law firm one rebuilding period at a time.